I'm Jamie White, writer of pop logic books, economics commentator and management consultant. Well, people who might be watching this interview, the only reason they'd be doing that is that they have read my stuff and they're interested in my stuff, and for that reason they become interested in me for whatever reason. Because if they're just interested in my ideas, well, they can get that. They can get that by reading my books or my articles. So I figure that if they're going to look at an interview, that's because they're interested in the person behind those ideas and how what kind of connection there might be between my ideas and my life. And so I've chosen questions that I hope will bring that out. I'm not really sure that, I'm not trying to suggest actually that there is any very profound connection. That's a thesis that some people have, kind of sociological determinist type view. I'm not necessarily endorsing that. I don't really have strong views on it one way or the other. I'm sure there are some connections, right? So it's got some value, even if the kind of sociological determinism isn't true. Well, clearly I'm both. What I write about are ideas. It's kind of applied philosophy, or sometimes it's really just straight economics, but usually with a kind of an angle about a slightly more philosophical perspective, maybe broadening the issues beyond the very narrowly economic. But still, the point is, it's all about ideas, and I don't write just for the sake of it. So I mean, I guess I could get some columns where I might write something rude about pop culture or something like that. I might say all this attention being paid to Britney Spears and sounds ridiculous. The kind of columns you get in the Daily Telegraph. But I don't write stuff like that because those aren't the ideas that I'm interested in, and I don't think I've got anything to say about that stuff that other people can't talk about better. So in that sense, I am a thinker. I don't just write for the sake of it. I don't have a weekly column, so I'm not required to fill space. So that said, the writing, I guess I am a writer more than a lot of other so-called thinkers, in that I'm trying to communicate with a broader audience than most academics. And when you're doing that, writing in an accessible way, an amusing way, an engaging way, that's much more important. And so, there are philosophers or thinkers who are much cleverer than I am, but they don't have, well, maybe they're not interested in it, or they can't do it, I'm not sure which, but they can't get their ideas across in the writing so well. And so the writing is important. And in fact, the writing is really more important in many ways commercially. So, what I think a lot of editors would like to see from me is less thinking and more writing, if you know what I mean. Making it, just more narrative element, because readers like to read stories. And if you can somehow get your ideas into a story form, that makes them more accessible. But it's very difficult to do that with certain kinds of ideas. And so, if you're dealing with certain kinds of ideas, they're kind of intrinsically a little bit inaccessible and dry. I maybe should put a little bit more effort. I think sometimes I keep straying back to philosophical tendencies. I should put a little more effort into seeing how I can put a story on it or something like that. And some of the things I've written that give me the most satisfaction aren't really the most clever or the deepest. They're the most amusing. So being funny is a satisfaction in itself. And I guess maybe I should be more of a writer. I should try harder on the writing. I ask myself this question because I don't usually think about it, so I'm taking this opportunity to address it, perhaps for my own sake. I normally don't address questions like that because I think they get in the way. You just have an urge to do something, you do it, and if you start thinking about what am I trying to achieve here, it may make you self-conscious or inhibit you in various ways. So I don't normally think about it, but I think occasionally it's a good idea to step back and think, what am I playing at here? And occasionally you're forced to step back and think about it because you get frustrated. And you start losing enthusiasm for doing what you're doing. And so of course you think, well, why am I doing this at all? What's the point? Partly it's just, I don't know what you might call it, entertainment, intellectual entertainment. Some people enjoy thinking about ideas, about stuff, and I'm providing them with a form of recreation. So my book Bad Thoughts here in the UK, but Crimes Against Logic in America. I mean, really I see it as just, it's mainly fun. And one of the reasons I've got to accept that it's mainly for that purpose is that you tend to be preaching to the choir. I mean, the only people who buy books like that, on the whole, so a book about logic, are people who are already disposed to that way of thinking. They're not really what you might call the people who need the book. They're not the enemy or the problem. They're already part of the choir. And so I'm preaching to them, they're enjoying it, we're all having a good time, but I'm not sure we're changing the world. So I've got to accept that primarily my books are, and my writings are entertainment for the already well-disposed to that kind of thing. I guess over the really long run, you kind of have some, just as another writer doing a certain kind of thing, you have some minor effect on general opinion. You know what I mean. There's no general opinion, but maybe you increase the number of people who think the way you would like people to think. But it's an incredibly slow business, and you know, I'm sure I'll die without having noticed any contribution to improving mankind. So I don't know. So I don't think, my guess is that if I'm really honest, I can't say I'm doing it for some greater good, some external cause. I'm probably doing it mainly for, you know, well, I won't call them selfish, but personal reasons. When I was a boy, I'd get very frustrated, almost angry, when I heard certain kinds of what I considered to be nonsense. You know, some people don't mind, they shrug their shoulders, they let it go, but not me. It, you know, it got me going, and I'd get worked up about it, and I'd argue. Now, when I say I'm getting worked up about it, it's important to see I'm not actually, that getting worked up and arguing about it, it's not making me unhappy. I'm not having a bad time. I'm kind of having a good time, but I'm still worked up. I think it's something that people need to realize, that getting agitated and yelling at the TV and going on like that, and people sometimes say to me, "Can I calm down? You know, it's okay, don't worry about it." Then it realizes this is a form of recreation. I'm not having a bad time. I'm having a perfectly good time. But nonetheless, it seems it's compulsive. I can't really help it. And so to some extent, I'm just kind of expressing myself. I mean, it's not expressing yourself in the, you know, it's rather structured and disciplined kind of expression, but it's still a form of self-expression. I never say things I don't mean. Some people, often I have what strike people as extreme opinions. So for example, you know, quite often I've argued that recreational drugs are actually good for you. I mean, I can explain what, I won't do it now, but I explain what I mean by good for you. I don't mean good for your health. But people sometimes think, well, you're just saying this to be provocative. Or, you know, there are other views I have. People say, you're just saying this to be, and I'm not. I really don't do that. Now, of course, I don't mind that they're provocative. I like that, in a way. I'm not denying that I like that. But I never, you know, say stuff I don't mean just for the sake of being provocative. Now, this question about whether I'm on a side, do I see myself as being on a side? And I'm, you know, putting in the good work for the side. I think that would be a virtue, if that were true. It just isn't. So what it's maybe this is a personal reflection rather than an intellectual one, but I find that whenever I get involved in something that looks a bit like a movement, or a kind of an organization dedicated to some end, very, very soon I find myself drifting away, becoming something of a splitter. Not a splitter in the sense of trying to form another organization, just very rapidly becoming disillusioned with the group stuff. You know? And I mean, my real passion when I was younger, the thing that fired me up more than anything was atheism. And I'm still an atheist, but I've kind of lost, I don't argue about it much anymore. And I'm slightly put off by the whole new atheist, you know, militant atheist thing. Partly because I think they're trying to make almost, I'm not saying atheism is a religion, that's a common, silly objection against atheism, but some atheists kind of start moving in that direction, especially the ones who call themselves humanists, and start saying we should have a public holidays on Darwin's birthday and this kind of thing. I mean, what is it, they're like Christmas? They seem to be getting a religious or church-like urge, right? They want to form a church, the Church of Atheists. And I always recoil from that. You know, I've never been able to be an active member of a political party, even though I'm very political. So and I think it's just because I can't stand the sense that you're giving in to the group. So you're that's childish, I know, because you don't have to give into the group. It's just helpful to group together and work towards a cause. I'm not praising myself here. I think it's a weakness, but it is a natural, it's an instinct I have. So that's mainly, I guess, what I'm trying to do. The other element, of course, is vanity. You know, I like it. I like it when a lot of people read an article and it creates a bit of a fuss on the internet or something. I enjoy feeling at the center of things. That's, well, I don't know if it's good or bad. It's how it is. And then I'd like, you know, I like it when I get a check. I like money. So those are the kind of reasons. Girls like it. I mean, I'm married and all that, but girls like it. It's a kind of impresses women. No, you know what I mean. Some psychiatrists say that everything you're doing, you're trying to impress women at some subconscious level, and it's any kind of notoriety or you doing something like being a writer that has a certain cachet, and I like that. So those are all trivial, supposedly trivial, but honest reasons for what I'm trying to do, I suppose.